happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. Welcome to Disconnect to Connect, One Word Conversations. Now, the one thing that I have gotten from these conversations I can't believe it's been like a couple weeks now. It's amazing the power of imperfect actions. There's part of me that's like embarrassed of my first show, but you can go back and watch. But the other part of me is just so excited about my first show because I just did it, right? And it's caused me to be here and having these conversations with my friends and my new friends. So today's word is boredom, and I'm sure that a lot of people during this time, you've had moments of this, and because I surely have. But the exciting thing is I get to unpack this conversation with a dear friend that you're going to love, and I'm just going to bring him in. I just can't wait to kind of get this started. There you are. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
What's up?
So what I like to do is to ask my guests to introduce themselves however they feel comfortable.
All right. How do I feel comfortable explaining myself? I am Jeff Harry. I play for a living. I know that sounds super weird, but that is what I do. And I run an organization called Rediscover Your Play, where we help people tap back into their inner child, as I actually believe that's where all the answers actually lie. And you just need to play with your inner child enough to figure out the answers. So that is what I do. And I just use all these tools of play to address really challenging stuff. And I also make a lot of really ridiculous, stupid videos. And that's what I've been doing this whole quarantine, man, just making dumb videos.
Right. So when I thought of this word for me, is that most of the times when I'm bored, I do stupid stuff, So it's like, so how does boredom show up for you?
It's exactly, I do exactly what you just said, right? I do stupid stuff. If you go to my YouTube page or my Instagram page, you just see me making really ridiculous videos that make no sense, that have no purpose, and are so much fun for me, man. It's helped me during this quarantine to stay sane, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh no. I think really recognizing, I guess, the power of the silly or the stupid or the playful type of thing, but recognize that if boredom comes, it's an indication that there's something else that you could be doing,
Yes.
or that you want to do, or something.
Some people were. I've been doing some research since I was like, we're going to talk about this word, so let me just explore it more. And it's just there's a restlessness to it. And some people, what was one of the quotes that I loved? Where was it? Boredom is just the reverse side of fascination. Both depends on being outside rather than inside a situation, and one leads to the other. So it's like the opposite side of the coin, And sometimes when you think about it, it's you need to be bored in order to come up with your most original, amazing ideas. That's the path, right? And I think what happens now, which is so interesting, is as I read, some people are always swiping and scrolling to avoid boredom, right? They're trying to swipe the boredom away, right? If I just scroll enough on Instagram, I'm going to swipe this boredom away. Or if I just binge watch Netflix, the boredom will disappear. But it doesn't. It just numbs you from these ideas that want to be birthed, that want to get out. and you're kind of like blocking them now instead of literally sitting in the boredom like you did as a kid. And then you'd be like, man, I'm bored. And then I'm going to build a fort, or I'm going to do some like crazy thing that later on in life you think about it and you're like, man, that was like my favorite thing of my childhood. But it was based off of how bored you were right before you did it.
Right. Why do you think there's so much shame around being bored? It's like, oh crap, I'm bored. Like there must be something wrong.
Yeah, I think it's because
right
we
now.
live in, like, especially in America, we live in a world of entertainment and edutainment, you know, especially for kids. Like you see parents now and they're so worried about their kid being bored, you know, that they constantly have to be scheduling them for stuff and entertaining them because they feel as if they're not doing a good job if that kid is not being stimulated all the time. And then I think for us, we're like, man, I shouldn't be bored because I have all these options. I should be able to be doing stuff. I should be producing all the time, which then ties into, like, you know, I saw Angie Cole on here, ties into the whole productivity equals self-worth thing. And then you're just like, oh man, like I should constantly be making stuff or being stimulated in some way, which is just not sustainable.
Right. But it's, you know, even though it's not, it still feels like it should be. Or are we trying to like make it right, you know? And it's like the busyness of, you know, of my life, or the anticipation of that. It just feel like, okay, you know, I just need to just stay in it. You know, the more that I stay in it, the more that good things will happen, instead of just, like you said, allowing the boredom to come. So the creativity and the whimsical, you know, comes along with that.
Well, I love that you said the busyness, because we've been challenged during the quarantine to question the busyness, right? Like the busyness is like, oh, that's my ego being like, oh, look, I have all this stuff to do. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so behind because I have all these things to do. Well, guess what now? Now you don't. Now you don't have so you now can't use those excuses, and you have to like sit. You have to sit with yourself, which is rough, dude. Like, I don't want to sit with my thoughts sometimes. Sometimes I'm super scared of my thoughts. I'm like, oh, I don't know about these thoughts. I better watch Netflix right now because I do not want to be. You want to just avoid it, but now you can't. And like, this is an opportunity to reflect, you know. I mean, I'm not saying don't watch Netflix, a little Tiger King once in a while, but also, but also, like, this is time to like sit there and just like sit in your boredom and see what comes up, which is really hard. And some people are like, I don't like to meditate, or I don't like to do yoga. Well, okay, well, just sit, you know, or like just do something mundane. I was looking up one of the definitions of boredom, and it ties into the boring drill. It comes from the idea of the boring drill, which is like a tedious, repetitious act. And but what's also interesting, I love that it comes from the boring drill because it's also drilling down, like you're drilling down into yourself to like unearth those really dope original ideas. But I think a lot of times we're like super worried about going that deep. So we're just I think I'm going to go on Instagram or TikTok for 3 hours, you know?
You know, right now, I don't know if it's my age right now, but TikTok occurs to me as, you know, ticking my life away, right? You know? It's like
I've been on
TikTok
like,
my life away, right?
Well, it totally, whatever I'm on, I'm like, oh gosh, I feel so bad about it.
You know, and I, you know, I think our, you know, going back to the busyness, is that my busyness kind of keeps me from going deep. It keeps me from going down into what, you know, the core is, to what's really going on. You know, I saw something that I shared yesterday when I went to Professor Google on Boredom, that, you know, happiness, the opposite of happiness is not sadness. it's boredom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, huh, I never really thought of it,
Yeah.
that way. And
Yeah.
it's like when I'm not happy in what's going on or everything like that, I am now bored, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why, get back to where I started. I do silly, stupid, and sometimes destructive things just to just keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what do you think about the happiness equation?
Yeah, I think there's a restlessness because I believe that the sign of boredom is that there's a part of you that wants to like birth or wants to get out and it can't. I was
Right.
reading about this, like kids get bored when they're not allowed to do something. Like you can't go outside
Hmm.
right now. Oh, I can't play video games.
Right.
Oh, right now. So like because you're prevented from doing this thing, you just feel
Right.
restless.
Right.
But for us as adults, we're allowed to do whatever we want. So when that happens, like it's something internal that we're like preventing ourselves from like getting out,
Right.
and sitting in I was reading some of the comments, Angie was saying like sitting in that stillness and silence is really rough because then you have to be super
Right.
vulnerable and have to like listen to those like
Right.
inner thoughts, both good and
Right.
bad, right? um
Right.
but that's where all the gems are, right?
Right.
But you might unearth also other really rough things in the process. And I don't think a lot of us want to
Right.
do that. We'd rather just be like, in the meh state than go through the roller coaster of emotions of like super happy, really bored and potentially sad, super happy, because that's a more fun ride, but it's also a
Right.
scarier ride than if we were just
Right.
than if we just watch Netflix until we get numb and then we go to sleep.
Right. It is those, there was a time when, I was going through some difficult times, and I felt like my life was like a roller coaster. And I told my friends that I wish I enjoyed roller coasters because I have no appreciation for my life right now, right? Because it's just gone all over the place. And it just felt like for me, and it's sometimes when I watch your videos or I watch play, just play in general, it's like, oh, I so wish I could do that. Oh, that's not me. Or that's, I need to be responsible, or I
Yeah.
need to, and it's just like really trying to give myself permission to not just to be bored, but recognize that in my boredom, in my unhappiness, that there is a release if I allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And it's that giving myself permission to play or to just kind of experience the feels, as they say.
Well, this ties into a conversation we had before when you were talking about labels, right?
Mhm.
You were bringing up something about how you have your father label and then you have Williams label, or you have your work work person, and then you have your like husband person. And it's like just trying on like a new coat. I'm gonna try on this play coat. I mean, a lot of people that I work with are like, I don't know how to play. And it's like, yeah, you do. Like you were a kid. You know how to play.
Right.
You've played before. You probably
Right.
played just a few hours ago, but you didn't realize it. I remember once I was
Right.
talking to a friend of mine, and she was just like, I don't play enough. And I was like, well, what do you do? And she's like, oh, well, I do law. So what I'd love to do is I love to like figure out how to get these two people that hate each other to actually agree. And I was like, that's play. Like you are figuring it out. And it was just like the shifting of perspectives and being like, oh, that's possible in my life, And I think a lot of times we limit it because we have, our labels or our stories of ourselves of like, this is who I am. And there's nothing that can go against that. Because then that challenges like my identity or whatever, like my label is.
Right. And that's my, I think that is my big message with living beyond our labels, is that, labels aren't bad. It's just kind of there is a you beyond, that label. There is something beyond that if you allow yourself the freedom and the grace to do it. But if you hold too tightly to, I'm an introvert and this is what introverts do, right? There's a lot of things that won't be available to you. There are a lot of things that won't come up in your life. And so living beyond the labels or the things that you identify, how you identify your life, gives you that access to the more, to the bigness, to the play, to the possibilities. And I think what this pandemic has been showing me is that there are still parts of my life that I haven't given myself permission to live.
Yep.
It's, it is just, I would say that there were, reasons why I didn't do this. I mean, just coming to having this show, the reasons why I didn't do Facebook Lives is because I needed a haircut, and I don't try. And it's like, now, I'm dealing with this, and I'm dealing with my edges, right? And on all this kind of stuff. But I'm on, so it's like, well, I guess that wasn't, a reason.
That wasn't an excuse. Right.
And it's like we have these excuses to keep us from living our lives. And I think we have the excuse that I'm bored, so I'm going to do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a thing I struggle with is now, because I'm making a lot of these funny, nonsensical, ridiculous videos. If I make something that's serious, I'm like, oh gosh, now people are going to, no, I'm not entertaining people, because now my ego is telling me like, I'm now the funny guy and that's all I can make. And I struggle with that, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Can I show my real self? Like, that's the interesting, like, exploration. Now those thoughts are coming in my head, and I could be like, well, let me address this. Or I could be like, oh, I really don't like these thoughts right now. Time for me to watch another episode of House of Cards because that's going to numb me, and then I don't have to deal with it, right? And I think a lot of times we really don't want that boredom to envelop us, because we're worried about what might come up. But the crazy part about it is, like, some of the most personal, powerful ideas that need you to, like, release are there, right? Like, how did it feel for you to just start doing this show? Like, from where you were at to where you are now?
Right. Well, that's a great question, because, the day before, when I said, okay, I'm just going to do it. And it was like, are you really going to do it? Is that, is this,
I love that. Really?
Right. It's like, it's like, we're not going to do this. Right. Do you know there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you just do this, right?
You need that haircut. You need that hair. I don't think you need that.
Right.
You're not ready.
And just what really sent me over the edge, and this is, it is my friends that, like, kind of rallied around me and said, not only are you doing this, but I'm going to be a part of this with you. And so it's like, now it's like, okay, I'm not going on this alone. Even though the first the first few shows were, look totally different than now. And it was the vehicle to kind of get me here and to really kind of say that. And it's like, finding that I was okay with not, I guess, what my excuses, I was okay of not showing up fully, but kind of saying, I wish I could show up fully. And that's, that's close enough.
Yeah.
And I think in some cases I wasn't happy with myself. I was going to use the word bored. I was getting bored with myself. It's, this is getting old, right?
I'm getting bored of my old self. That's
Right.
ultimately like you're trying to break out and you're like, I'm just so bored of me. But you're not really bored of you. You're bored of the old you. And you're like, I'm more than this, right?
Right.
That's the good sign when the boredom is appearing.
Right. And it just kind of creates it basically it creates that opportunity to go there. I mean, do you get bored with your play?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was thinking about it. There's some bravery in boredom, right? Like,
Right.
like I do this science. I'm doing that Yale Science of Happiness class with a bunch of friends of mine. And one of the challenges was to savor. Like one of our weeks was to savor. So my challenge for myself was like, I'm going to eat food and I'm not going to watch YouTube. I'm not going to have my phone next to me. I'm just going to eat the food and enjoy the food. Do you know how difficult that was? There? Because I was like, I need stimulus. I need to be multitasking. I need to feel like I'm productive. And it was just like to sit and just eat. And it was just like, and it was freaking boring at first, man. And then after all, and it's so mundane. Like, I think, I don't know, if it was Gary, someone asked like, well, what are the boredom practices? Do nothing. That's it. That's it. Just like you could do meditation, you could do yoga. Those are vehicles, but also you could just freaking just sit with yourself. Just sit and just see what comes up, which is really hard. But like, if there's ever a time to do it, this would be the time, right? Like there's no like reason. You have time. You've always had time, but you had excuses before. Because you had to get somewhere or you had to, do something. But now it's just like, yeah, just sit with yourself, which I'm not saying is easy because that's how I started making videos. It would just be like, man, like I think I was tired of watching other people make videos. And I was like, man, I can make this video, or I can make a video like this, or I'll make a video that's just as interesting as this. And this is really boring, me just watching someone else create. And then I don't even know what I made. I think we made like, my nephew and I made like some stupid like video of like us dancing. I danced in like an alien costume, right?
Oh, yeah, I love that.
And then here's the fascinating part is we're recreating some stupid video that we saw. I get in my alien costume, and while I'm like prepping for this other video I'm going to make, I just start dancing in it in this ridiculous way.
Right.
And then I was like, and then I looked at the footage afterwards, and I'm like, let me just cut it and put it up as something else that's just stupid that I put on. And then somebody reached out to me and was just like, hey, can I buy your clip to use for a video? And I was like, what is happening? And it was just so fascinating, this idea of like, it started off as a ridiculous idea. The idea that I was actually doing, that I was pursuing, wasn't even what I ultimately ended up doing. So you don't even know where you're going, right? I'm just following my bliss based off of my boredom. And then it results in someone that I don't even know finding me and then being like, hey, I'd like to share this in this way. And that is fascinating to me, that you, like when you're allowing yourself to actually be fully you and put yourself fully out there, whether that's through video or blogs or writing or whatever it is that you choose to do, you're putting flag posts out in the world so that other people that vibe with you can find you. And I think a lot of times when we numb ourselves and prevent ourselves from being bored, to sitting in it, we are actually preventing ourselves from connecting with the rest of the world.
Yeah, when this first started, I was hearing a lot of that. Hey, I don't have to go to work. I can start drinking at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I can start. It's like, I don't want to say doing destructive things, but doing reverting to our vices, or our reverting to coping things, instead of I think what you're speaking to is not trying to do something big or saying, okay, I have to do something big and creative, but just sitting in that boredom or that unhappiness or that whatever emotions that are happening, and then seeing what comes up out of that, the next. And I think too often we miss those opportunities because we try to cope. We try
Yeah.
to sedate,
Yep.
boredom, so we miss those opportunities of clarity and creativity.
That's so true. We miss those, and those opportunities of clarity are really small steps. And I found, and I've talked to some friends about this, of like, you know, where then you feel guilty because you haven't expressed yourself, right? So then finally,
Right.
when you're like, okay, I'm going to express myself, then you're like, I'm going to express myself. I'm going to be big,
Right.
and like, and you
Right.
start talking to people, and they're like, we're going to create a summit. We're going to create this huge, grand, and you're like, whoa, dude, just make one thing. I don't even care what you make. No, I
Right.
tell this to people all the time, because I tell this myself too. You put something out here, no one's paying attention. Nobody's paying attention. But what's
Right.
interesting is, like, that's the best part, is because you're freeing, because then you can just create whatever you want. And then whoever eventually does pay attention is going to vibe with you. But I think when we finally want to express ourselves, our ego comes in and is like, what can I do to become a celebrity immediately? What can I do to
Right.
get all this praise? And it's like, we're then again missing the point, where we're either like sitting off stage watching YouTube or Netflix, or then we feel like we need to be on stage, and then we need to like entertain for everybody, like
Right.
So it's like, it's finding that happy medium of just being like, I'm just putting out me.
Right.
This is me.
Right.
Like it doesn't really matter, because I'm making these for myself anyway.
Right. Getting back to your question about me doing the show and starting this, my first idea was to do this, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and go, hey, because the story that I was telling myself is, nobody would want to do this and all that other kind of stuff. And so, but the other thing that happened was, I really enjoy having these types of conversations. And so in order for me to stay happy and not get bored, right? I said, I am going to commit to do these things daily.
Yeah.
Even if I only have these type of conversations for 45 minutes a day,
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. And so really embracing and say, that is my desire, to have these type of conversations on the daily. And having my friends be involved, or whomever I invite, or we kind of come along on this, that's will keep me, involved and engaged and really kind of willing to go through the sucky first steps, or the things that I am judging,
Right.
what's happening and not happening, in these videos or in these conversations.
What's also really powerful that I love about the one word conversations is, I don't remember the last time I spoke and tried to define one word since college. I think it's since college, where like, when you're having a debate and you're like, well, before we have the debate, let's make sure we define the word before we, like, after that, you just kind of skip over it. And what's really cool about this is, you would think, well, there's no way in which someone could have a 45-minute or an hour-long conversation about one word. And it's like, no, you can, dude. Actually, what we should be doing. This is how I actually believe news should be reported. It should be like in-depth, going deep on one thing, instead of like surface level touching on something, because then you're like, wait, what just happened? I'm sorry, you just summed up like a whole entire war conflict in 30 seconds. I don't understand what happened. Like, no wonder people are always so exhausted after watching the news or social media or their work emails, is because there's this constant stimulation, and you're never allowed to just rest. And I was thinking about how, like, part of being bored is the daydreaming. Like, if you remember the daydreaming you used to do as a kid, Like,
Right.
that's where all the cool ideas are coming.
Right.
Like you watch kids, and they're like, pretty, and you're like, what are you doing? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. That's
Right.
I was just thinking about diving into marshmallows and then flying the rainbow. And you're like, what? Are you high? What is wrong with you? But that kid is having crazy cool thoughts. And if you think of like some of the greatest inventions, some of the greatest ideas that shaped this world, they came from boredom. A lot of them came from a boredom place. And then someone was like, I need to address this because this is an issue. And I'm tired of just like talking about it. Because that's another thing you can do. Like you could have talked about doing these one-word conversations for a whole year. You know,
yes,
like you did. And then something amazing happens. And I think we have to realize that, like what does Will Smith say on like the opposite side of fear is anything is possible, all these possibilities. And I feel like the same thing with boredom, you know, on the opposite side of boredom is curiosity. And when you're like embracing the word curiosity and exploring it, man, the world is super cool all of a sudden. You know, it's like the coolest thing.
Yeah, you know, when you were speaking, I was just start thinking, you know, that has a whole nother meaning of a happy place. You know, there in my boredom, I can find a happy. You know, I go to my happy place, right? You know, it's like that. You know, the imagination, the creative, and just kind of just be in that. And I think. You know, for me as, you know, as an adult, you know, there's only certain times that I, you know, have to be happy or, you know, because I have to be responsible and serious and all those other things that I say to myself, because if I'm too happy, I'm not, you know, I'm not serious.
Right.
you know, if I'm, you know, if
and
you know,
serious
so
is like where all the great ideas come from, right? You're like, I gotta be serious right now.
Right. And it's the things that we say ourselves, you know.
And I love that you said happy place, because my friend Virginia challenged me today about this, where she was just like, yeah, she goes, oh, Facebook's my happy place. I only go there if I'm like connecting or having like a happy experience, like sharing stuff. But if I don't like it, then I don't go there. And it's just like, like how many places do I go that are not happy places, but I still go there? You know, like how many times have I found myself scrolling through Instagram stories and being like, I am not happy. Let me continue to scroll, as if that is going to give me this joy, when I could instead put my phone down, sit for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then all of a sudden be like, I want to do something, you know, that otherwise would never have come up.
Right. It's like, I think that you're saying before about we're stimulated or overly stimulated, or feel like we need to be, and then it's in that calmness, or in that quiet, in that boredom. I think now I'm like embracing boredom right now. It's like, you know, I used to give my son you know, I feel kind of bad. The dad label is like, I feel like really bad, because I used to get on his case anytime it's like, oh, I'm so bored. It's like, we got all this stuff. What do you mean you're bored?
Right.
You know, right. You know, you got, you know, all this and all this. Go outside. You know, do so. You know, it's like you can't be bored, and it's just I feel like there was.
What did you feel like it was a failure on your part that he was bored?
Yes, I do. Right. It was like, because I was creating, you know, this home with all of these things that can be done, and, you know, with a yard and all, you know, and all the different things, and you're bored, right? You know, it's like, really? You know, it's like, I've been working, you know, 40, 50, 60 hours a week for you to be bored.
To not be bored. You're bored.
Right. And you know, and so, and it's like, and it had nothing to do with me. It was what he was trying to see, what he was trying to create, what he was trying to find find his happy place,
Right.
find
And
the
he had to,
things that he enjoyed.
and he had to sit in that restlessness. And I think a lot of times we
Right.
don't want to sit in that
Right.
restlessness. And to think like this just makes me, this is absurd, but it's like you could live 10 lifetimes of 100 years each and probably not finish watching everything on Netflix, Hulu, and HBO Go. You know what I'm saying? Like there's that
Right.
much content that is currently out there
Right.
at some point. So you can always get stimulant, but you're only
Right.
actually around for maybe 80 to 100 years. And a part of me, and I've said this to myself, mind you, I've watched a lot of YouTube and a lot of like movies, but at the part of me does not want to end my life, you know, and be like, man, I really wish I hadn't watched a whole year's worth of YouTube. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, what could I have
Right.
done instead of watching, you know, Star Wars for the 800th time, even though I love Star Wars, you know,
Right.
and what could I have created instead of that? You know, what would have been possible? And that's the part that really like kicked my butt into gear to be like, make something just for today. Just, it doesn't really matter. Just make
Right.
something.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that stillness that that Angie is, you know, is talking about is that there is so many things. We're almost conditioned not to be still, right? You know.
No, if you're still, you're not doing anything. You're not productive.
Right. You know, we say things like, you know, that train has left. You missed the boat. You know, you're not on. You know, it's like, so we have to keep moving, or we're gonna miss.
You're not moving. You're
right.
die.
We're gonna miss.
Right.
So, and it's like the people that are standing around, or the people that are calm or are meditating, they're missing something. You know, there's this FOMO.
Oh, dude,
that
FOMO, dude, the
right,
FOMO.
Right. So,
and I think I shared this once. It was like this, I don't know, meme or cartoon where it was talking and it was showing like, I don't know, I think it was showing like Rembrandt. And he was like, oh man, I haven't created something in like 3 years, you know, and he's just like trying to figure out what he's going to create next. And like, he's kind of stressing out about it. And then it shows someone in social media now that's like, man, I haven't posted something in like 3 hours, you know,
Right.
It's like now we feel we always have to be on. I think the part that is so exhausting and why people are super exhausted on Zoom calls or exhausted with social media or all this stuff is you always feel like you have to be on and actually just sit with yourself and sit and be still. Then all that kind of like melts away. But then no one knows what's going on with you. And then you're like, oh my gosh. Like I remember talking to my nephew and he was just like, I asked him, I said, what if you don't post for like a day on Snapchat? And he said, oh, my friends will think I died. Like they actually will literally believe something is wrong. They will check in on him because they're like, are you okay? It's been a whole day since you posted. And it's just like, man, he didn't post for a week. You know, it's just like, yeah, he's gone. He's passed. That is the level of stimulation that we're like asking ourselves to be. And I agree with Angie. She's like, we are programmed to be like a commodity, to be a media outlet, almost like like we have our own TV show on Instagram and YouTube. And so we always have to be creating content. And if you're not creating and you're simply just being, not human doings, human beings, then something is wrong with you, which is crazy, dude. It's
and the
madness.
And the other thing with all that content that we feel that we need to create, we don't want to be boring, you know,
Exactly.
because if we're boring, people scroll right
People
by
won't
us or
like
people
it.
ignore us. Right.
And that faults me because I've posted stuff and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to post it and I don't really care. And then a part of me is like, let me see how many likes I got. Did I get a lot of likes? I mean, like,
Right.
there's no part of you that's
Right.
like, can I be seen? I need to be seen right now. Like, it's true. There's like that struggle. But I think what I find really great is when I actually am grounded. And then I really do create something from like myself,
Right.
like from my soul, and I put it out there. I forget that it's even out there. I'm like, oh yeah,
Right.
I forgot I created that, because then I'm not looking for validation from likes or loves or whatever it is coming back to me, because there's never enough to give me enough like self-love. And I'm just like, this is just a creation of who I am. And it really doesn't matter what anyone thinks, because I'm just sharing myself.
Right. I had to check myself a couple times about my post and why I was doing things, and I guess the motivation behind it. Because I would feel like, oh, I've just shared some very insightful or something encouraging thing, and like nobody responds. No, it's just like crickets, right? So it's just like,
you're like nobody heard me.
it's like I must have missed it. Okay, that was that went over well. And it really didn't matter. It really doesn't. And because I've had people inbox me and say that, hey, yeah, what you shared a few days ago, that really touched me. And there was, I didn't have the time to say everything that I wanted to say, and and an emoji or a like wouldn't do it. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Right. So it's like, even in our content, we're trying to, look for the likes and the loves and everything like that. But it's just, when we show up fully, we just show up fully. The universe rewards us. It just comes back way beyond likes and loves, right? And hearts and all that other kind of stuff.
William. The universe rewards when we show up fully. I love that.
And so it's just really understanding that at the end of the day, you just have to be true to yourself. And I think what I'm learning from this conversation is an access point to your desires, your happiness, and your creativity and curiosity is finding out when you're bored, identifying when boredom comes,
and then being in it, not running away from it, not running away from your thoughts, not running away from who you are. And there's something super powerful about thinking about, like, when have I showed up fully? Like, if you were just to think about all the times in your life when you showed up fully, and then to think like that's a life well lived. Like, at the end of your life, you will feel content if you are consistently figuring out how you show up fully.
Right.
So that would be just a fascinating process. I'm going to do this where I'm just going to be like, let me write down all the times in which I actually showed up fully and what were like the patterns with that. And how do I do that more? Because really, like, that's living, right? Like, that's the fun, risky roller coaster part, where you are showing up, whether you're showing up sad or happy or funny or weird or whatever it is, but you're showing up like fully you, and whatever happens, happens. And I think a lot of times we're so worried about being liked or being recognized or being seen. Which is ironic, because we want to be seen, but then we don't show our full self, and then we get angry at someone because they haven't seen us. And it's just like, dude, forget all that mess. Sit. Sit. Stop thinking so much. Sit with your thoughts. Be fucking frustrated. Oh, sorry, swearing. Be, just struggling. Struggle for a little bit, because it's okay to struggle. and then just see what
Right.
comes up. And then whatever comes up, create from that space and just see where it
Right.
goes. And it's like, woo, man. And then the universe will reward you.
Right. Wow. Ah, we could talk for hours, my friend, but we have reached that time. I mean, that was a good closing thought there. But do you
Yeah,
have any
man.
other
That is.
wisdom or anything
I don't
to
know if I can.
share?
I don't know if I can top that. I'm just leave it right there. I'm gonna sit still in it. I'm gonna sit still and let it be.
And let it be. So, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on rediscoveryourplay.com as well as social media at Jeff Harry Plays. So Instagram at Jeff Harry Plays. Yeah, man. And see all the ridiculousness I'm making when I'm bored.
That's when the magic happens,
That's
right?
when the magic happens.
Hey, can you stick around in the green room for a little bit while I close
Yeah,
the
sure.
show? Absolutely. Thanks. Uh, now I have to hit the right button, right? Hit the button. Oh, that is great. I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that too. I appreciate you everyone being a part and contributing to the conversation. Who would have known boredom, an access point to your happiness, to your creativity and curiosity. Most of the times I would run away from that my boredom, but I really am glad that we had that. So,
That was awesome. It's
the
still live,
world.
William.
Uh, yeah, we are still, and you are still muted. So yeah, and I'll be almost ending, right? So the world wants you. I love Jeff, and I think, but the world wants you, the world needs you, and the world has been waiting for you. So go be you, my friend. Have a great rest of your day.